South Park is no stranger to throwing romantic relationships in the mix for their characters. Stan and Wendy have been a thing since season 1, and of course, TweakX Craig has become a fan favorite episode, but I think probably the most unique rom-com of an episode is Cartman Finds Love, and there's a few reasons for this. For one, it is such a funny twist on the rom-com formula, with Cartman pulling the strings to manipulate Tolkien and Nicole's relationship, but this episode is also like ground zero for Kyle x Cartman shippers, or Kaiman as the shipping fandom affectionately refers to them. Not to mention, it is a chilling look into Cartman's psyche unlike any other. There is a ton to dive into with this one, so let's take a look at Cartman Finds Love. Obviously, for most characters in South Park, reasoning with Cartman is absolutely futile, and I think we all know how infuriating that sounds. Talking to somebody who simply will not listen to your concerns no matter what you say. Unfortunately, this is also a lot of people's experience when booking medical appointments of all things, and there is nothing that brings me more relief than actually talking to a doctor who listens to and talks through my concerns. And the best tool out there for finding that doctor is today's video sponsor, ZocDoc. ZocDoc is a free website that helps you find and book high-quality in-network doctors, all based on your own preferences. You can search through the 200+ specialties offered on ZocDoc and see which doctors take your insurance, read reviews from real patients before deciding who feels like the right fit for you. They have over 150,000 providers across all 50 states, covering everything from primary care to dentistry to dermatology to eye care. You can book in person or you can do video visits, see real-time availability for appointments, and schedule instantly with no phone calls required. I was recently looking for a dermatologist to get an annual skin cancer screening, which, by the way, you should all be doing every year. Get on it if you're not. And I live in a new city now, so I didn't have a dermatologist here. It can be really nerve-wracking to find a new doctor that you trust, especially with something important like skin cancer screenings, and so I was really happy that I was able to find someone so easily who made me feel so at ease. And appointments made through ZocDoc happen incredibly fast, usually, often within 24 to 72 hours of booking, and sometimes even the same day. Stop putting off doctor's appointments and find a doctor who will care and understand you. Go to ZocDoc.com/Johnny2Cellos or click the link in the description to find and instantly book a top-rated doctor today. So when it comes to Cartman Finds Love, I think there are 3 specific angles that are really fascinating to talk about, and obviously, in a way, they all intertwine. For one, there is the primary plot here, Cartman manipulating Tolkien and Nicole into entering a relationship without them realizing who is pulling the strings. Then there's the Cupid Me of it all, which is a bizarre insight into Cartman's psyche, showcased through this little Cupid character. And lastly, there's the whole Kaiman angle. South Park is a show with a ton of fandom shippers. One of the earliest videos I ever wrote for this channel, a near decade ago at this point, was about the validity of the Kaiman ship. Granted, this was a different time on YouTube, and the video was like a 3-minute bare bones theory with a bad thumbnail, and then that video got blocked, so I made it again a few years later, only barely slightly improved. But this episode has way more than just the Kaiman stuff, so it absolutely deserves a thorough deep dive. Interestingly, this episode actually started out as the B story to an entirely different episode, Sarcastiball.
What happens a lot of times in a show like that is that part just became so funny to us that by Friday or Saturday we still had both ideas going, and we just realized they were just 2 huge ideas that could be their own episodes.
So after realizing that both of these stories were viable for their own episodes, they set aside Sarcastiball for the following episode and focused on fleshing out the Cartman, Tolkien, Nicole storyline, which ultimately involved creating Cupid Me and adding him to the mix. I actually really liked hearing Trey get into the weeds about why it made sense to split these episodes up from a writing perspective, and he makes a ton of sense here.
I kind of try to remind myself all the time now is that the reason they were 2 big of ideas because they both had kind of points to them. They both had themes.
They're 2 separate tones almost, too.
Yeah.
Obviously, sometimes there are stories that feel like they fit together. Like, the connective tissue here was going to be Nicole being a cheerleader, while the rest of the story was about a sport, Sarcastiball. That's why some of the scenes take place on the football field. But thematically, they were just completely different beasts. It's a good writing lesson that just because something might fit together logistically, it doesn't mean it's a perfect fit from a storytelling or messaging perspective. And focusing on Cartman here really is a majorly robust episode topic. For one, it's an age-old formula that we've seen from Cartman over and over, acting entirely based on his own racist presumptions, in this case, and in many other cases, about Tolkien. We previously have seen this in small aspects of episodes like Christian Rockhard.
I don't know how to play bass. Token, how many times do we have to go through this? You're black, you can play bass. God damn it.
And it's actually even resurfaced as recently as the latest season in the Thanksgiving episode Turkey Trot, in which Cartman wants Tolkien to join their race team because he assumes Tolkien is a good runner. So this is an approach we've seen from Cartman for basically the entire duration of the series. And this episode starts with Butters freaking out that there's a new girl in school, and Cartman's statement here obviously doesn't age well given his actions later in the episode.
It's gonna be her choice who she likes the most.
Immediately upon seeing that Nicole is black, Cartman assumes she and Tolkien will like each other and be a couple, and he expresses how happy he is for Tolkien, much to Tolkien's confusion and anger. And immediately Cartman tries to put his thumb on the scale here as well. He goes to Bebe and Red and lies to them that Tolkien is interested in Nicole. I actually think that Cartman genuinely believed that Tolkien was too shy to say his true feelings here because he's that psychopathic, and I think a lot of the Cupid Me storyline in this explores that belief system. But when the girls bring this up to Nicole, she actually reveals she has a crush on somebody else.
That kid with the orange coat and the green hat? Oh, you mean Kyle? Yeah. What?
Cartman's pure rage here is so funny to me. And while obviously this is presented as his anger because he's sure Tolkien and Nicole belong together, this also starts to motivate the whole Kaiman conversation in the fandom, particularly given the way he tries to divert Nicole away from Kyle by telling her that he and Kyle are in a closeted gay relationship. He tells her Kyle doesn't want them to be out because he's embarrassed, but at home he's the best boyfriend Cartman has ever had. Obviously the staunchest of ship fuel for the Kaiman shippers, and an absolutely insane move from Cartman.
Anyway, thanks a lot, and just, stay away from my man, bitch.
Now, obviously, at this point, Cartman has just been doing a ton of lying, but here is where he really starts to ramp up his manipulation by luring Nicole into the locker room where he knows Tolkien is alone and locking them in there together.
Somebody left a deli platter. And board games. And massage oil.
I don't know if the implication is that they got locked in there all night or just for a few hours, but either way, this is a truly crazy, shitty thing to do to someone. And the kicker is that Cartman's plan totally works. Goes off without a hitch even. Nicole is grateful that Tolkien made her feel safe, and they admit that they had a lot of fun together.
Maybe, I don't know, maybe we should get some lunch tomorrow.
Oh my god, so cute.
So obviously everything is now in motion for Cartman's plan. I think what I find funniest about the angle of this episode is the idea that Cartman is using his prejudice and bigotry in like this sort of wholesome way. Obviously the presumptions he's making and the way he manipulates the situation is totally messed up and indefensible, but the tone being this kind of cutesy rom-com love story thing makes the juxtaposition of the actions and the story very funny. And that is also sort of the genius of this episode. It's structured like a love story or rom-com through Cartman's messed up manipulation of Nicole and Tolkien.
Cartman is he's having a love story, basically. I mean, he's having all the beats of a love story, but just, butterflies in his stomach and loss and breakup and all this stuff.
So even though Tolkien and Nicole also have their love story going on, Cartman is the one being portrayed as the focus of that love story formula. Frankly, it's kind of fitting that the thing that makes Cartman most sensitive and feel butterflies is pure, unadulterated racism. Classic Cartman. We go through this montage of Nicole and Tolkien's romance, with Cartman obsessively following along every step of the way. He keeps popping up in the background of every shot of them on their dates. In fact, rewatching this time, this is the first time I noticed this one. When Tolkien and Nicole are video chatting on his laptop, you can see a tiny Cartman pop up on the mountain outside of Tolkien's window. That is such a funny detail. There's also the scene where Nicole is going through all of these photos and caricature of herself and Tolkien, and you can see that Eric is in all of these as well. He's just going along for every step of their relationship. He even has his own memory book that he made himself of Tolkien and Nicole, implying that he secretly took all of these photos of them while spying on and stalking them. The first part of the quote-unquote love story also introduces the other stories in this episode. For one, the fallout from Cartman's lie that he and Kyle are a couple. After Cartman talks to her, Nicole tells Kyle she's there if he ever needs to talk because she's trying to be sympathetic towards his embarrassment around his relationship. But obviously, Kyle has no context because this was all a lie and thinks Nicole is actually into him romantically. And basically for the entire episode, as word gets around that Kyle is gay, all the girls start to treat him differently, which Kyle, again, thinks is actually just them being more into him. He's really feeling himself in this one. It's actually really funny that even when Cartman's focus is just on something entirely unrelated, he somehow finds a way to rope Kyle in and completely mess up his life. Even just byproducts of Cartman's schemes are anti-Kyle. And the other thing is, of course, the introduction of Cupid Me, this little Cupid version of Eric that he seems to fully hallucinate and definitely represents some of the deepest parts of Cartman's psyche. He's almost this Jiminy Cricket conscience type figure, except he's a terrible influence and fully imaginary. After Kyle learns the truth and calls out Cartman's gay lie, Cartman tries to justify his actions and insists that people of the same race belong together, pointing to a Latino couple as proof, and then Cupid Me basically confirms that Cartman also pulled the strings to get that couple together the exact same way. This also presents a really great Kyle conundrum as well, because ultimately he's upset at Cartman for how it messed up his life. He lost his chance to date Nicole because of Cartman's actions, but Kyle, ever the moral one, also sees the unfortunate reality that Tolkien and Nicole are clearly so happy together. It's genuinely just a perfect dilemma for Kyle. He's not the type of person who would willingly mess up somebody else's happiness for selfish reasons, even if that happiness stemmed from Cartman's shitty bigotry. That formula is always pretty entertaining when Cartman is clearly in the wrong and has done something indefensible, but it also somehow leads to something good, so Kyle can't really argue. I think the other interesting angle this episode showcases is Nicole's father's concern that she's dating Tolkien, simply because they're the only two black kids in South Park, fearing what the other people in town might think or how they might judge them, that it might actually reinforce the harmful idea that Cartman is peddling, that black people belong together and that there shouldn't be interracial couples.
I know it seems like a strange coincidence, but it really is a coincidence.
But when Nicole reads this tag on the back of the teddy bear that she thinks is from Tolkien that says "'cause blacks belong together," she thinks that Tolkien actually also subscribes to that idea and decides to break things off with him. Of course, we know the teddy bear was from Cartman. We saw him drop it off at her house earlier in the episode, and this leads to another important love story beat, the Heartbreak. Though interestingly, Tolkien takes it pretty maturely, despite being clearly very sad. It's of course Cartman who sobs over the breakup. He completely breaks down. Butteries even acts as the best friend, consoling him. This leads to his depression period. He's shown stereotypically eating ice cream in the dark, watching TV, and then something completely unrelated gives him an epiphany, leading to him trying one last grand gesture to save the relationship he cares about. It really is a beat-for-beat rom-com situation. Of course, this grand gesture is once again to lure Kyle away from Nicole, who are on a date at the Denver Nuggets game, as is coincidentally Tolkien. Cartman professes his love for Kyle publicly on the Jumbotron, truly just dumping gasoline on the Kaiman fandom fire. We'll talk more about that in a bit. And just like in a rom-com, the grand gesture leads to exactly what Cartman wants. Of course, it doesn't directly lead to this. It's only once Kyle tells Nicole that Cartman was behind everything that she realizes she was mistaken about Tolkien's intentions, and they make up. And it wouldn't be South Park if there weren't some ironic subversion here, with Tolkien and Nicole, the only two black kids in school, professing to each other that the color of their skin doesn't matter in their relationship.
Yay!
Oh my god, so cute.
This is, of course, a weird, bittersweet South Park ending where the characters you want to end up happy do end up happy, but so does Cartman. He really just got everything he wanted here. They at least try to give him a slight consequence with the halitosis girl chasing after him, but overall, this was Cartman's love story and it played out to its happy conclusion. But there is obviously a lot more to dive into R.E. Cartman's psyche, so let's talk about Cupid Me. I think it's fair to presume that Cupid Me is basically that representation of Cartman's thought process, or in some cases, the vocalization of his innermost thoughts. It's the thing that literally helps Cartman play out his weird racist fantasy. It's the thing that puts action to what were previously just thoughts. But I think the thing that's sort of important to Cartman's character is that he really does believe these things. He really does believe that Tolkien and Nicole should be together because they're black, and he fully thinks he's doing a good thing by putting them together. He thinks that's how it should be, and this is because Cartman is insane and awful, of course, but it's his belief. And then there's that important beat in this episode when Cartman is sobbing over the end of Tolkien and Nicole's relationship. He takes a moment to basically murder Cupid Me. And to me, this is Cartman choosing to silence those beliefs that he held. Now, this is obviously not because Cartman has changed or become a good person or realized the error of his ways. It's because the experience is forcing him to think that his staunchly held belief was wrong and that he's heartbroken over this. It's the moment in a rom-com when a character is forced to reconcile with the fact that maybe true love isn't real. But of course, it's got that racist Cartman twist. And when he sees that TV commercial that motivates him to give it one more chance, he goes back and wakes up Cupid Me and puts those staunchly held racist beliefs back to work. The show actually explores Cupid Me a couple more times, and he always seems to represent something deep inside Cartman that is somehow repressing and filtering through another action. Season 26 Cupid Ye is once again harmful racist beliefs, largely as a Kanye stand-in commentary-wise. But though we as the audience see Cupid Me, Cartman is really the one doing all of the terrible things Cupid Me is shown to be doing, which is confirmed after Tolkien's dad walks into his bedroom and we see Cartman's shadow scrambling out of the window. But the other very interesting episode that utilizes Cupid Me is Tweak X Craig, initially appearing to showcase Cartman's confusion over his gay classmates. This is definitely a different angle because this actually seems to represent Cartman questioning himself. After Tweak and Craig break up, Cupid Me takes it really hard and goes to a bar to pick up guys. But obviously, we know Cupid Me is not real. This is just Cartman, and to everyone else at that bar, it just looks like Cartman is there alone. This, alongside the ultimate development towards the end of the episode, which I don't think I can really showcase or even fully describe because of how graphic it is, it's essentially pointing to the idea that Cartman has these repressed gay tendencies, which kind of neatly ties us into the last part of this video, Kaiman. Because the core of the idea behind Kaiman is that Cartman is also repressing feelings for Kyle. That his long-standing obsession with Kyle is actually a confused kid not understanding how to process the fact that he actually has a huge crush on him. And I do think when you look at the way he treats Kyle and some of his actions over the series with this in mind, it recontextualizes a lot. It's a common trope that kids will bully the people they have crushes on, not knowing how to communicate or process their true feelings. I mean, there's an entire trilogy where Cartman is trying to get Kyle to suck his balls, in which Cartman saved Kyle's life and wept over his body as he came back to life. And that's not even the only time Cartman has saved Kyle's life. Consider San Francisco in Smug Alert. At the very least, it is a very interesting idea to explore due to the pretty explicit confirmation that Cartman is repressing some of these confused feelings. And while I do think that maybe Cartman's obsession with Kyle is an unresolved crush, there is no planet on which Kyle would ever reciprocate those feelings, so you will not catch me shipping Kaiman. Ultimately, Cartman Finds Love has a lot to dig into. It's an outstanding love story parody through Cartman's worst manipulative tendencies. It's a bizarre look into the psyche of Cartman that we rarely see in the show. It's Kaiman Ground Zero, and honestly, I'm not even sure how else to end this video. I guess I might just point out that
Batmobile's outside. Seriously, you guys gotta see it. It's the Batmobile. It's outside.
I stay mellow watching Johnny Two Cellos. He talks cartoons, he's a really cool fellow. He keeps you posted on adult cartoons. If that's what you're into, then grab a spoon and a very big bowl of your favorite cereal. Feels like Saturday morning cartoon material. Johnny Two Cellos, watch him on YouTube. Now enjoy this groove and bust a move.